I was 28 when this happened. At the time, I worked as a freelance web designer, which meant I could live just about anywhere as long as the internet was decent. I've always been quiet, observant, the kind of person who notices patterns and routines without really meaning to. I grew up in cities, but after a rough breakup and some burnout, I wanted somewhere slower, somewhere that felt safe. That's how I ended up in a small town called Ridgeway. Population just under 3,000, tucked between farmland and a stretch of forest that never seemed to thin out. It was the kind of place with one grocery store, 2 gas stations, and a diner where everyone somehow knew your name by your second visit. This happened in late October, a few weeks before winter really started to set in. Days were short, nights cold and silent. I rented a small duplex on the edge of town, close enough to walk to Main Street, but far enough that streetlights thinned out near my block. That evening started like any other. I finished work around 6, microwaved leftovers, and decided to take a walk to clear my head. I remember thinking how quiet everything felt. Not peaceful exactly, just empty, like the town was holding its breath. At the time, I didn't see that as a warning. I saw it as calm. Ridgeway shut down early. By 7:30, most shops were closed and the sidewalks felt abandoned. I walked past the hardware store, the library and the diner, where a few regulars sat hunched over coffee cups beneath buzzing fluorescent lights. I stopped at the gas station to grab a soda. The clerk, a teenage girl with tired eyes, rang me up without saying much. As I paid, she glanced past me toward the window, then back down at the register. I assumed she was bored or distracted. Outside, the air smelled like damp leaves and cold asphalt. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then stopped. I took my usual route home, cutting through a residential street lined with modest houses and sagging porches. Most lights were off. A few TVs flickered behind curtains. I checked my phone, no new messages, no notifications. That familiar loneliness crept in, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just there. About halfway down the block, I slowed near an intersection where the streetlights stopped working months earlier. The darkness didn't bother me much. I'd walked it dozens of times. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, not close, not rushing, just there. I told myself it was another resident out for a walk. I didn't turn around. Small towns teach you not to overreact. I kept walking. The footsteps matched mine. When I slowed, they slowed. When I stepped over a crack in the sidewalk, there was a pause, then the same sound behind me. The rhythm felt deliberate, but I still tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone was on their phone. Maybe they were distracted. At the next corner, I stopped to tie my shoe. The footsteps stopped too. I waited a few seconds, crouched there, pretending to fuss with the laces. My heart picked up just a little. When I stood and glanced back, the street was empty. No one in sight, no cars, no movement. I felt embarrassed for even thinking something was wrong. I kept walking. A block later, I heard it again, this time closer, too close. I crossed the street without looking, my shoes scuffing louder than normal. The footsteps crossed too, just a second later. That's when I finally turned around. Under the weak glow of a distant porch light, I saw a man standing maybe 30 feet behind me. He was tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. His hands were in his pockets. He wasn't walking anymore, just standing there, staring. We locked eyes. After a moment, he lifted one hand slightly like he might wave, then dropped it back into his pocket. I forced a polite nod and turned away, my stomach tight. I told myself he lived nearby, that this was nothing, but when I sped up, so did he. I turned down a side street that led toward my duplex. It was darker there, trees arching overhead, branches scraping lightly in the wind. My breath sounded too loud in my ears. The footsteps stayed with me. I didn't look back again. I didn't want to confirm what I already felt. Instead, I focused on the familiar landmarks. The cracked mailbox, the leaning stop sign, the house with the broken fence. When I reached my block, relief Hit hard. My place was halfway down, lights off, porch dark. I fumbled for my keys, already reaching the steps. That's when the footsteps stopped. I froze. Slowly, I turned. The man stood at the corner of the block, half hidden by shadow. Close enough now that I could see his face. Pale, expressionless. His eyes looked wrong, not angry, not excited, just empty. "Hey," he said quietly. I didn't respond. "You dropped something," he added. "I'm good," I said, my voice tighter than I meant. He took a step forward. "I just want to talk." Every instinct in my body screamed at me to get inside. I turned back to my door, hands shaking as I tried the key. It slipped from my fingers and hit the porch with a sharp clatter. Behind me, his footsteps resumed. Slow, confident. "Please stop," I said, not turning around. He didn't. I snatched the key off the porch and forced it into the lock. It stuck for a second, just long enough for his shadow to stretch across the steps beside me. "I've seen you around," he said, closer now. "You don't belong here." I finally faced him. Up close, he smelled like stale cigarettes and something sour. His face was lined, older than I'd thought. His eyes flicked briefly to the door behind me, then back to my face. "I live here," I said. "You need to leave." He smiled, not wide, not friendly, just a small movement at the corner of his mouth. "No," he said softly. "You don't." He reached into his jacket pocket. I didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. I shoved past him, bolting down the steps and into the street, yelling as loud as I could. My voice echoed down the block, thin and panicked. Behind me, he laughed once, a short, breathy sound, and then started running. I ran harder than I ever had. I didn't look back. I didn't stop screaming until lights flicked on in nearby houses and a door opened somewhere down the street. When I finally dared to turn around, the street was empty. He was gone. The police came. They took my statement, walked the area, asked vague questions. One of them recognized my description. "Probably just a local," he said. "Harmless, most of the time." And that phrase stuck with me. They never found him. No report, no follow-up. I didn't sleep that night or many nights after. Every sound outside my window felt like footsteps. Every shadow felt watched. A week later, I broke my lease. The landlord seemed unsurprised. "Yeah," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Ridgeway isn't for everyone." It's been 3 years. Sometimes I still think about that night, about how certain he sounded when he said I didn't belong. Last month, while cleaning out an old email account, I found a message sent years ago with no subject line. It was empty, except for one attached photo, a picture of my porch, taken from the street.